welcome to our edition of Malleshwaram Katte Mato. The Katte Mato is a platform where we hope to engage citizens of this area with the critical issues that concern them, whether it be health or sanitation, lighting, public spaces, and so on. And in this first series of webinars on COVID-related topics, we'll be starting with our first topic, which is COVID awareness now and the future. This is obviously a topic which is pretty high on everybody's list of priorities. And we had run a kind of a poll on some social media platforms, and people had indicated that this is what they would like to first start with. The Malleshwaram Katte Mato is hosted by Malleshwaram Urban Living Lab, MUL, and this is a joint initiative of Malleshwaram Social, the community group that most of you are pretty familiar with, and Sensing Local Foundation, an urban living lab that works on environmental and public health issues in Indian cities. Today we have a wonderful panel comprising of both experts and lay people who will talk about from their perspectives to give a holistic picture of the pandemic. We have with us today Dr. Suresh Rudrappa, who is the Medical Officer of Health of Malleshwaram. Dr. Kumar, who's a practicing physician at Victoria Hospital, which has been, one of the sort of the hotspots of, I shouldn't say hotspots, but has been handling a lot of COVID patients. Diya Naidu, who had tested positive in March and will speak about her experiences, and Pavan Melkote, who is currently under home quarantine. So before we start off, I just would like to introduce from Sensing Local, we have Sobia Rafiq, who's an urban planner. And from Malleshwaram Social, we have Dhanush, who's an engineer and a volunteer with us. And I am Suchitra Deep, I'm an architect. So I think I'll hand over at this point to Sobia to start off our panel discussion.
Yes. Hi, everyone. The panel, I just wanted to introduce the way we'll be actually organizing this panel. We've divided it into 4 parts. We'll start off with Diya just narrating her experience. We'll move into then the doctor from Victoria Hospital, who will answer a few of the questions that I think a lot of you all have also raised on just getting an understanding of COVID-19 and what it is to get COVID-19 and the kind of treatment procedures that are there. We will then move on to Pavan, who will then give us an experience of having traveled all the way from Gurgaon back home to Bangalore and his quarantine experience. And lastly, we'll have Mr. Rudrappa, the MOH, who will actually answer a lot of our questions as a community on what we need to be doing, as well as how we need to, and what are the notifications from the government that need to be followed, and what can we as a community do. Yes, we also have Ankit from Sensing Local. Ankit, if you can just manage muting the participants before we start off. Yeah. So Diya, welcome. Thank you so much for taking out time to speak with us. I'd like you to sort of open up the discussion as you have been in the forefront, not only having the experience of going through the COVID situation, but also having donated plasma for the treatment, which as we all know is already a forerunning step where there are very few plasma donors at this moment looking at treatment processes. Over to you. And if you could just give a brief introduction of yourself, that would be great.
Yeah. Hi, Sobia. Yeah, I live in Bangalore. I'm originally from Kolkata and I've been here since 2006. I'm an independent artist, so I'm a choreographer and a dancer. And I actually was traveling on a dance project on work, which is why I was in Switzerland in the beginning of March. I was there for about a week, and I came back on the 8th, which is when I probably got infected. And then I got a call finally from I basically when I landed, there was really no protocol at that moment. The airlines made us fill up a lot of forms, and so did the airport authority. But when I was leaving the airport, I sort of tried to ask, what do I do? Am I like, because I felt fine. Obviously, I had just landed. So I said, do I go home and stay home, or do I come for a checkup? Or what is the protocol? Because in Switzerland, it was pretty relaxed, even though I knew there were cases, there was even a death by then. But it was pretty relaxed in terms of the airport. There was no checking. I flew from Geneva and there was absolutely no sign of any issues. Even Paris airport, where I transited through, you saw some people wearing masks, but it was literally like 3 to 5% of people around me. And all of them seemed like people who were coming from Asian countries who were actually wearing masks. I saw no Europeans, no brown people, or no African people, nobody else wearing a mask except people from Asian countries. So I was wondering if it's just force of habit or because of the SARS experience that they had had, etc. So it was really sort of like, is this thing really happening or what's going on? Anyway, so the airport authority also said, no, Ma, you fill up the form, it's fine, you go home. The next day and the next couple of days, for some reason, there was like an instinct. I said, okay, I'm just going to stay home for a day or two to see. And I felt fine. I did go into work, which was rehearsals with luckily mainly young and very, very fit dancers. And since I don't live with my parents or meet that many elderly people in my circle, since I'm here, I kind of work here with people who aren't in the older age category. I managed to avoid that age group. And then I just decided in a couple of days to go and check with the hospital anyway, because I was jet lagged, so I was feeling tired, but I couldn't tell, is it jet lag or is it something else? I was starting to get a little paranoid. So when I went to the doctor at a private hospital, and he said, do you have symptoms? I said, no, but he wanted to check me up anyway, but he couldn't, because at that time, the country I came from was not on the national directive. Only Iran, Italy, China, and Singapore were. Anyway, to cut a long story short, he wasn't allowed to test me. He told me to watch myself, and in case I had any symptoms, to come in, which I didn't. Except that a few days later, I completely lost my sense of taste and smell, which at the time was not a known symptom at all. In fact, all the doctors I called were like, "You probably have something, but it's not COVID." And then people also said, maybe you have a sinus issue. The fact that I didn't have a cold at all made me feel like something's wrong, because I could breathe perfectly, but I couldn't smell. So yeah, so basically that, and then this smell and taste thing was really bothering me, even though I really had no other kind of symptoms. Like, the thing is, because I'm a physical practitioner, I always have some amount of body pain because of sore muscles. So I couldn't tell, is it that or is it something else? Am I just jet lagged or am I tired? I couldn't really tell, but there was some kind of instinct. So I called the hospital again 3 days later, and I said, I want to come and see the same doctor just to check. And they said, well, now you can get tested because your country and many more countries have been added to the list. So that's when I realized, okay, this is really big, because in like 3 or 4 days, they've added like a bunch of countries to this list of countries that could get tested, people coming from those countries. So I went in and I got tested. And in 2 days, I got the call in the evening saying that you are COVID positive. Where are you? Please send your location. There is an ambulance and a medical officer coming to get you. And yeah, so then I was picked up, taken into ESI hospital in Indiranagar, where I was kept under observation for a few days, tested again. Once it was confirmed positive, I was shifted to Jayanagar General Hospital, where I was in isolation for, like, the whole thing together was about 3 weeks. I tested negative within 2 weeks, but they kept me there for 1 more week to keep testing, keep testing. I don't know how I did, like at least 3 more swab tests that came negative, plus maybe 3 or 4 more blood tests that also came negative before they released me, because I was early stages. Right now, I really doubt they would give that kind of attention to anyone, but because I was early stages, they were really, really stringent, and they tracked like crazy all my primary contacts, all their secondary contacts, every, like, I went to a grocery store, that was tracked, I was found on the CCTV, everything that I may have touched. Of 14 days after contact with me, 6 of my primary contacts were picked up, taken in, and kept for 2 days, where they were tested and only allowed to leave when they were tested negative. So yeah, this is basically what happened.
And I mean, if you could just talk a little bit about your experience after that, and when you did go and give the plasma therapy, and it's very unknown to us as well. I think a lot of the people don't. I mean, since you're on the other side of the line, it'd be interesting to also, understand. And as you did have the disease, the sort of how did your neighborhood react, and what, because all of us here are also now seeing more and more cases in our own streets or in our own buildings. And I think it'll be important to get that perspective from your end of, being in a neighborhood and living in a community.
Yeah, so I mean, when I was in the hospital, I realized in the first few days that there was like the system hadn't been put into place, right? So the protocol, people were still scrambling to find protocol, and it was a little bit daunting to be alone in that environment. But I don't know, somehow I wasn't scared. What was happening to me was I was feeling really, really stressed about the older people that may have got infected. Like, I met one dancer who met his grandmother, and I was really, really like, I couldn't stop thinking about that. Like, oh God, what if she got it? What if it affects her? And so on. And I had attended a fundraising event in the first couple of days before I lost smell and taste. And luckily, no one from there got it, but still, it was like this responsibility, this kind of like. So yeah, so that happened, and the minute I got into hospital, I realized that it's taking a while for the system to fall into place. But within 4 or 5 days, a system had fallen into place, and once I was confirmed positive, the tracking by the BBMP, the state surveillance, the police was really, really crazy and very intricate. I mean, they knew every Ola, auto, or cab I took, and if they found like place A to place B, we can trace this guy. But B to C, how did you go? So I'm like, if I walked, then they want to know where I walked through. If I say I got a lift from a friend, then they want to know who that friend is, because that person has to be tested, that vehicle has to be sanitized, and that person has to be quarantined. And they went to the houses of all my friends, basically all my the people who I danced with, and stamped them to make sure they stayed home for 2 weeks. So that happened. What I found was, even though in the beginning I could see that the quality of the protective gear was not as good as it was, say, 5 days later, where then they were looking like proper astronaut situation had happened. But before that, it was really like not so much. But I found that the healthcare workers themselves, though they were really scared, I could feel it, because they were really trying to stay far away, and they would hand over something quite like scared like that, but they were really compassionate and empathetic, and that kind of really moved me. Even later, I had situations where, like, once there was a woman, a nurse, taking my blood, and I asked her, "Aren't you scared?" And she was, of course, in full PPE, but she said, "No, I'm not scared. This is what I signed up for in life. This is my opportunity to serve." And that kind of made me really humble and grateful, and also, yeah, it kind of really opened my eyes as to how, as humans, we can really expand ourselves. And then there was a nurse who used to come and peep like that and check, because she could see that when you're in isolation, there are days when you're not doing so well, especially when there's symptoms coming up. You start to, like, it gets to you, to your head. So they were always checking, and there was in fact a state assigned psychiatrist who was calling me quite often. So this nurse came and told me, like, I'm sorry, I'm not spending time with you. And I was like, no, obviously, please don't spend time with me. Like, and she was like, no, no, but I'm praying for you all the time. Please know that. And so these are just moments of kindness. I think that they don't have to do. It's not their job at all to do that, but they're doing it. And the BBMP doctors, for example, were on call. Like they at 11:30 at night, they were available to me. 12 o'clock at night sometimes. Because I was texting them a lot, sending them lots of WhatsApp images of like my Ola cab records, this, that. So if they got a message from me late, they would reply late or call me to say, why aren't you sleeping? And things like that. So it was really like, I was like, what is this crazy personal connect these people are able to make when there's a pandemic going on? It was just insane. So that's one end of the spectrum, I think, in terms of how we can behave. And then there's also like, for example, my landlord, in a couple of days of me going to hospital, called and said, please make sure you don't come back here to live. And I understand it. I don't judge it because obviously there's so much fear that, it's the, like, I guess the person who's the nurse or the healthcare worker is expanding her love and compassion to a stranger like me. But he's kind of keeping his love and compassion for his family, where he's like, anybody who's a threat, stay away. And which is what I think tends to happen in so many circles, whether it's politically we can see it around us constantly. So there was really that I could see this way that love can manifest, where either it includes people or it excludes people. Yeah, so now I'm living right now in the dance studio where I work, because at that moment the BBMP and the police and the state psychiatrist actually intervened and made sure that I could go back home. But after that, he started to get really antsy and it got quite toxic. And so I actually left. And I found a house, but I can only move in after a month. So right now I'm staying in a dance studio. So those are some of the things. Plasma was, the team is trying its best. I still don't know if it's been like stamped by the center.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact that they're somewhere in some places they're using it, because I constantly get messages from patients and their families in Mumbai and Delhi, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, I can't do anything for people that far away. But then I put them in touch with the Karnataka team, and hopefully that helps. But yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing this. I think it was an amazing story, and hats off to you. And a lot of this is also that we understand this part of the story. And I think Suchitra, like, we'll move on to the next. Suchitra, on to you, if we can move on to the next part of it.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Dia. I was one of the people who was in the Mukhtiar Ali concert. So I was also under home quarantine. I was one of early quarantiners with you. And getting updates on you on almost a daily basis. I think what we all have our, n number of questions. Despite all the information that we are getting on this, we still have a number of questions that we'd like to ask. So I think some of them are going to be starting from first principles. And I'd like to speak to Dr. Kumar, who is who's working at Victoria Hospital. We'll start with really basic questions. I mean, how do you get infected? Is it from speaking to someone, touching someone? Is it through food? Is it through water? What are the ways that you are most likely to get infected?
Okay. You can hear?
Yeah. Yes.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm Dr. Kumar, one of the practicing physician in Victoria Hospital. So you know that it's one of the designated hospital. So I thought I'll brief regarding some of the common doubts and issues and the problems which the common people are facing with the COVID and the current scenario. One of the most common thing is, what are the modes, how people are getting infected, why such a wide spread region. You can see most of the countries are suffering from it, and most of the people are suffering from it. So I'll be just sharing the screen. Just let me know if you can see the screen. Yeah, is it visible?
Yeah.
Not
Is it visible?
Yeah, it's. I think yes,
Projecting on
yes,
it.
Yeah, is it visible?
Yeah, yeah.
yes,
Yeah, sure.
yeah.
That's what. With more than what we have seen about in our state, about more than 7,000 cases as of now. Majority of them have been presenting with mild symptoms like fever, sore throat, and as Dia was telling, with anosmia, that is loss of smell, which was later on added as one of the earliest sign or an earliest symptom in COVID-19. So that was added later on, and along with that, other symptoms like fatigue, the excessive tiredness which we all feel, and body pain. These are all commonly seen in most of the viral infections, but there is no particular pattern as like any other viral diseases wherein you can tell this patient might be suffering from COVID-19, or this patient might not be suffering from COVID-19 and he has some other disease. And the major problem is with these asymptomatic patients. So asymptomatic patients, even though they don't have any symptoms, they can transmit the disease from the infected person to the other person. But by the time they are diagnosed, most of the people would have been infected by the so-called in the asymptomatic person. Hello,
Yeah, yeah.
I can see. Yeah. So along with the other minor symptoms which are there in any viral infection, uh, there are many people who presented with GI disturbances like vomiting, loose stools, and there are many who developed other serious complications like cardiac disease, cardiac arrest, and who presented with stroke. Later on, they were diagnosed to be COVID-19 positive. So there was various mode of variety of presentation in the healthcare. Then along with that, what we can see is the most common mode of transmission was through the droplet infection, wherein the infected person, whenever he speaks or coughs or sneezes, will be throwing out some amount of bacteria into the environment. And these viruses will lodge onto your hands or any other particle or any other substance which is there with which you will come in contact with, and later on you will be getting infected. And if at all you are coming in contact with any other person, you will be spreading the virus to the other person also. So that is one mode. And along with that, what we have seen recently is with the quarantine part. So the most of the quarantine centers themselves are becoming one of the cluster of cases. So that might be because of the common washroom or the which is being used. Because what we have seen is most of the infected people, even after being cured, they'll be excreting the virus for up to 6 months. So using common bathroom is one of the source of infection. Hello.
Yeah. So, doctor, many of these things
Hello.
are very. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Who are the most likely people to get infected? That's one question that people have. Who are the most vulnerable, or who most likely? Where would you most likely get infected? What are the situations?
To get infected, I think most of the people can get infected. It's not like there is any particular group. The chance, if you ask the chance of getting infected, it's the high risk people, whom we call as high risk, are those people who belong to age group of more than 60. They have higher chances of getting infected, and if you see the severity of infection, it's seen to be more in those people or more severe in those people above 60 and in pregnant ladies and younger children less than 10 years, and people who
Okay.
are suffering from other diseases like diabetes, hypertension. So they're all comorbidities, maybe kidney disease and many people who have chronic smoking history, already diseased lung or diseased heart. So those are the people who are having more mortality or more severe disease, you can call it as, and chances of getting infected also are more among those people.
Right. But if you're asymptomatic and you are already infected, how will you even be able to sort of you won't really know, and then you already infected many people possibly. I think that's the big fear amongst many people.
Yeah. See, the asymptomatic people whom we have in healthcare as of now are most of the people who have history of travel or who have history of contact with a positive person. So that's why they were tested and they got a positive, this COVID positive report. So if they didn't have any history probably of any travel or didn't have any contact with any positive patient, probably they wouldn't have been tested. So this is
yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so that's why there are particular guidelines and particular precautions which everyone has to follow, because nobody knows who is infected.
So would you say that if all of us followed these precautionary measures, we are fairly at least in a position to remain safe?
Yeah, nothing, it won't guarantee, but it will reduce the chances of getting infected and transmitting the disease to the other person.
Right. So can you just note? Sure. So can you tell us what would be, maybe in terms of priority, what would be the most important precautionary measures that you would advise?
First one is social distancing. So try to stay at home as much as possible unless there is any necessary. Obviously, there has been like so much of economical burden in the last 2 months. So probably there is necessity for you to go out. So if at all you're going out, just make sure you maintain the social distancing. That is, try to maintain a distance of 1 to 2 meters between when you're talking to a person. So there are high chances of you not transmitting the disease and vice versa. You won't get the disease also. And every time, make sure you come back, wash your hands, take bath, and make sure you don't touch any of the other things at home before you take bath or wash your hands, so that you won't be transmitting the virus from your body into other surfaces, which you will come in contact later on. So hand wash practices, then social distancing, using mask whenever you go out. So these are the basic ones you have to make sure you follow, at least now and in near future, so that we can limit the disease at this stage.
So I have two questions here, about masks. A lot of people are, again and again, they're saying, can we use reusable masks? How important is it to use masks? How much does it cut down, transmission of the disease? And how in the future now, how many months literally would you see us continuing to, have to use this mask? Because many people have this feeling that, okay, it's gone, COVID is gone. Now we can stop bothering.
Mask reusable masks basically are using it so that you don't transmit the virus to the other person. So if the other person is wearing the mask and if you are not wearing, so you should be 100% sure that you are not infected. We are protecting only yourself. So since there is something called asymptomatic so you never know you are infected or you are carrying the virus or not. So it's always ideal to wear the mask so that you don't transmit. And most of the masks, since there is so much burden of N95 masks, so obviously we cannot expect everyone to wear N95 masks, which will give you maximum protection from viruses. But a simple mask can itself reduce the chances of you getting infected or transmitting the virus.
Right. And you would also, of course, I guess we should keep our immunity high by various other measures.
Yes.
Would you give us just a brief idea of what would be these measures?
So what I suggest is just make sure you avoid eating anything outside, cut down on all junk foods, and taking sufficient nutrition in correct amount when you're there at home. And I also suggest betadine gargling. You can do gargling even with salt water gargling. That is also good enough. So twice daily, maybe once in the morning and once in the night. So that will also help you in avoiding.
Right. Can you give us just briefly again a picture of what's happening in your hospital? How are you handling it? How is the burden on the hospital? Is it better or worse? What is your expectation in the long term?
Okay. So as you can see, the caseload, it's in the increasing trend since past 15 days. So we are getting roughly around 30 to 40 cases in Bangalore itself now, everyday basis. So initially we used to have maybe 5 to 10 cases in a day. So the management was easier, as Dia was telling the initial persons, when the number of patients were less, the number of workforce, the number of people working towards it were more. So there was patient to patient care. Even now with the increasing demand, we are trying to include more manpower and try to give all the facilities, all the basic this thing required during their stay in hospital.
Right.
And
Right.
as of now, we are functioning with 2 blocks which are dedicated towards COVID patients in Victoria, wherein
Yeah.
only COVID patients are being handled. And regarding the non, there is this thing going on regarding handling other patients. And
Sure.
this thing, yeah, stay once you're tested positive in any of the centers, any of the screening centers or in the fever clinics. So the only hospital where you will be shifted to in Bangalore is Victoria now, as of now. Once you are there in Victoria, you will be treated for about 14 days. The treatment actually is for up to 5 to 7 days based on the severity. Based on the severity, will be grouped into various A, B, C. The asymptomatic and the mild symptoms will be grouped into group A, wherein they'll receive the symptomatic treatment and the basic treatment which is there for COVID. And the severe cases who need oxygen support and who need to be on ventilators will be managed in ICU. And they are the ones who will be monitored or who need maximum care up to 14 days. Otherwise, most of the people, the treatment itself stops, or the medications as such will stop at around 5 to 7 days. After that, it's basically monitoring the patient and will be discharged only after the swab reports come negative for 2 consecutive days.
Right. So, Doctor, we might come back to you with questions towards the end of the session. I think we'll move on at this point to Sophia will be speaking to Pawan about his experience. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
So Pawan, coming now to you. We've heard about your experience coming back. We've heard it from Dhanush. But what I'd like you to share with everybody here is your travel back and you having to quarantine yourself. Just the whole experience again, like we did with Dia. If you could highlight a bit about that and give us a small intro about yourself as well.
Sure. So, firstly, am I audible? Cool. My network is poor, so I might drop out in between, but do let me know when that happens. So, my name is Pawan. I work with a Gurgaon-based company called Misters. I had products there. We decided to be 100% remote, which is why I'm in Bangalore now. So everybody moved back to their hometowns. So the travel back to Bangalore was, apart from airlines canceling my ticket 3 times, there was no problem from the, from the process that happened at the airport. So when I entered Delhi airport, I was asked to install Arogya Setu app and then make sure that it says you are safe. It shows a green screen if you're safe. Then they check the temperature at your airports, and unlike before, they don't touch any of your documents, your ID cards or any of those documents. You just have to show it on a glass screen, and people just check it, and then they check the mobile ticket also on the glass screen, and then they let you in. So apart from thermal checks, there was no other check at the Delhi airport. And then, you unfortunately, when you board a flight, there is no social distancing observed there. Everybody's sitting next to each other, and airlines are full as usual. The only difference was that the flight attendants were wearing some sort of protective equipment, just a long coat with some headgear and gloves. And a mask, obviously, and everybody was required to wear masks, and we were given shields, a face shield that covers the face, and the person sitting in the middle seat was asked to wear a long plastic coat. That was the only difference, but apart from that, the flight experience was no different from how it was before.
Right.
It's just that there is a joke, right? Like now, when you enter a flight, it feels like you're entering an ICU because everybody's dressed like a doctor or medical personnel. And then when I entered Bangalore, when I entered Bangalore airport, I was actually surprised at the way they were handling the entire process. It's very streamlined and very well managed by civil defense personnel. So you get into a queue based on whether you have an e-pass or not. So if you're anybody traveling to Karnataka are required to apply for an e-pass from the government of Karnataka site called Seva Sindhu. And those of us who had applied for the pass, we were in a queue, and those people who did not have the pass, they were made to go into a different queue. And so it just adds about 30 minutes extra to your airport experience. The good part is the baggage had already arrived by the time you finish this process and go there, so you can just collect and leave. Interestingly, they only checked again. They only checked my temperature, and then stamped based on your if you're asymptomatic, if you have no symptoms, if you have no cough, cold, or these are those basic questions. If you don't have any of those, they ask you to go for home quarantine. But if you have cough or difficulty breathing or some kind of fever, they immediately isolate you and then take you to a COVID test. Or no, they take you to an institutional quarantine, and then if you develop symptoms there, they do the testing, I believe. I'm not very sure what happens if you have symptoms. But yeah, so I was asked to home quarantine, and my hand was stamped. They give you 2 stamps, one with the date and one which says that you're clear to go for home quarantine. Interestingly, one of the funny advices I got is I asked that person who stamped my hand, what happens if I wash my hand? Because I'm supposed to wash my hand as often as I can. So he asked me not to wash my hand for 14 days because otherwise the stamp would go away. But then, so your boarding passes will also be stamped, so there is no need to worry. The stamp is for, making sure that you cannot go out during your home quarantine time. And all shopkeepers and, salon owners, restaurateurs, and including RWA people are asked to make sure they check the stamp of people who are home quarantined so that they complete the home quarantine time before they get out. Because the rule now is that if you are home quarantined and you get out before your home quarantine ends, police can file an FIR on you. So it is pretty strict, and they're doing it very well. Except that, there is, what I observed is that when it comes to RWA guys managing this, there is a lot of lack of awareness. So when I read the travel guidelines on the ePass portal, it said I have to inform the RWA folks about me coming here. And then just a day before I wanted to inform them, my mom panicked and she called me and she said, don't come home because they're saying that they're going to take you to a quarantine center. So why don't you go there directly? So, and then there was a lot of confusion over that because the RWA secretary was not very well aware of the guidelines. And then I called him up and I told him that I'm traveling from Gurgaon and via Delhi. And yeah, and I'll be home quarantined, I'll be staying in my room and all of that. But then he was like, no, you cannot go back to your home. You'll have to get a COVID negative report. So then I had to explain to him that nobody can get a test done just because they want to, and only if you have symptoms is when you can get a test done. Only after I explained all of those about like the 20-minute conversation, he was like, yeah, that's fine, but he said he'll get a doctor in the morning to check on me and all of that. I said that is fine, and I'm willing to cooperate. So next morning, ASHA workers came home. They checked my temperature and then just asked me the same questions that the airport folks had asked. If I have any symptoms or difficulty breathing or cough or fever, any of those things. I said no, and then they put a notice on my door which says we are home quarantined. And I am home quarantined till 19th of June. So still about 4 days to go. Yeah.
4 days, yeah.
I think one thing that I noticed was from the government side on creating processes to streamline things to make travel easy. I think I would give 10 on 10 for that. It was very well done with the limited resources they have and also the limited real estate they have inside the airport. They were making sure that everybody maintains the 2-meter distance even while standing in the queue for getting your hand stamped and getting your e-pass checked and all of that. So they were doing a really good job there. Just that, when it comes to communicating to all RWA folks and all the other people, I think that's where there is some more awareness needed. Because also, once what happened is that when ASHA workers came to put the notice on my door, I noticed 4 of my neighbors were on the street looking at it as if, something interesting is happening. And a few neighbors do keep checking with my parents if I'm staying inside my room. And also there is a lot of fear around it. Some of them are legit questions that if I'm staying inside and not getting out and all of that. But also I feel that, because of lack of awareness, it's leading to some sort of panic in people. And also when I was talking to you this morning, Sobhya, so you mentioned that, it is, we are right now in a state where anybody can get it. So I think with that in context, it makes sense to create more awareness so that people are not panicking and people know what to do if something happens. If they come in contact with someone who's COVID positive, or if they themselves are COVID positive, then they need to figure out, they need to have the data and information to know what they should do instead of relying on WhatsApp forwards. So
I think that's great. Thank you so much, Pawan. I think that leads us right into our next session where we have our MOH here, who is under whose jurisdiction Malleshwaram does come under. And I'm going to pass it on to Dhanush. Dhanush will take it on with the session with Mr. Rudrappa. Dhanush, your mic is on mute.
Thank you, Sobhya, for that, and thank you, Pawan. Hello, Suresh sir. Hello, sir. Dhanush.
Hello, Dhanush.
Sir.
Hello, Dhanush. Yeah, namaskara. Really.
Sir, ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಕೊಂತಿದ್ದೀರಾ ದಿಯಾ ಅವ್ರ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೀರಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಪವನ್ ಅವ್ರ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೀರಿಯನ್ಸ್ especially when it comes to the neighbors or the public in general, the kind of understanding or ಯಾತರ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಿದೆ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಯಾವಾಗ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ರೀಚ್ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಅಂಡ್ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಪವನ್ ಹೇಳ್ದಂಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ವಾಟ್ಸ್ಆಪ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೋ ಮೆಸೇಜಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆ ಅವ್ರು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು, ಅವ್ರ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಹೇಗಿದೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು. ಸೊ ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಏನಂದ್ರೆ, ಇಫ್ ಅ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ಫೀಲ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ಅವ್ರಿಗೊಂದು ಅದರ ಸಿಂಪ್ಟಮ್ಸ್ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಿದೆ, ಇಫ್ ಹಿ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ದ ಸಿಂಪ್ಟಮ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಕೋವಿಡ್, ಅವ್ರು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಅವಾಗ?
Symptoms of COVID, Dr. Kumar has clearly explained. The symptoms of COVID ಏನಿರ್ಬೋದು, myalgia ಇರ್ಬೋದು, sore throat ಇರ್ಬೋದು, fever ಇರ್ಬೋದು, and even one example Dia, she has given you that she had only lost taste of smell. Other than that, nothing else she had. Then later, after 2 or 3 days, then she said she had all the other symptoms. So first was she never had the smell. That smell was actually, we had never heard about it. And later, this also came into, this is a coexistence thing. So other than that, comorbid conditions, Dr. Kumar has already told you. Comorbid condition, hypertension, blood, that is the hypertension and diabetes, along with cancer, secondary CA. All these conditions are there. So any and heart disease, chronic heart disease. All these conditions are there, and comorbid conditions usually above 40 years, and above 50 years it is danger. Above 60 years it is exactly 100% danger. That is what the science says. So what exactly you need is only thing, as Dr. Kumar said, the basic thing is first is social distancing, wearing the face mask, then regularly hand washing and sanitizing, avoiding overcrowding, avoiding to going to other places. These are the basic things. And at the same time, if you have any signs and symptoms like fever, cough, sore throat, myalgia, all these things, please consult your family doctor, family physician first. Or if you are not, nearest health center in Malleshwaram range. You have around about 5 health centers in Malleshwaram range. That's the Malleshwaram MLA constituency, where 7 wards are situated. Any of these, along with the fever clinics, 2 fever clinics are there. And one more is a transit mobile clinic also is there in Aishanpur bus stand.
Okay. The list of these health centers and all, where is it available, sir?
It is available on the website, and if you can come to my office, I can give you.
Okay. Done, sir. So,
if you mail me also, I can send you.
I think there's a helpline also number.
Yes, helpline numbers are also there. Yes.
Okay. So we will collect all this information and send to all the participants who have registered later. And it will also be available on our website of MUL. So for all the resources.
Yeah, even website of BDMP also it is available. On the website of BDMP also it is available.
Okay. And if a person is tested positive for COVID, so as the Dr. Kumar will be taking them to Victoria, or can you just go through the whole process once more, just for clarity?
Yeah, COVID patient, only we can get the COVID patient positive after we get the confirmation report. Once we get a confirmatory report, only then we say he is a COVID positive patient. Until then, whether he is symptomatic or asymptomatic, we do not know. Even if he has got the symptoms, we will only be knowing only after his test comes positive. As soon as his test report comes positive, then we try to shift the COVID patient immediately.
So if I as an individual, I want to directly get tested, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನಾದರೂ ಆಪ್ಷನ್ ಇದೆಯಾ?
ಇಲ್ಲ, ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಇವಾಗ there are COVID designated labs, private labs are there. Private labs ನಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಿ you can pay the amount and definitely get it done. But otherwise, asymptomatic usually government does not do. Only government does for the symptomatic patient and asymptomatic, that is the symptomatic patient is COVID-19 positive case and the primary contacts and the secondary contacts. These people will be done free of cost by the government.
Okay. So what is the costs involved for tested in a private lab?
Around about 4,750 the government has fixed.
Okay. So if a person, and next the major question is what to do when a neighbor or like a person you know or you might have come in contact, if they are tested positive, what should we do or like if I'm not contacted the person, but he's my neighbor and he's COVID positive, what are the do's and don'ts? Yen madbeku, yen madbardu?
You will be treated as a primary contact. Huh?
Okay, that is only when you interacted with them.
If you are interacted with him. If you are not interacted with him, if at all you are not interacted with him, but still you are maintaining a social distance, but he is still your neighbor, you can be a secondary contact.
Okay. In cases like Diaz, where we saw that the landlord, so they were like mistreated so many times, and
they can be penalized. They can be penalized under our Disaster Management Act. We have the thing which under the Act, they can be penalized and they can be put behind bars also. According to the section, we have relevant sections of the Disaster Management Act for giving punishment to the landlord who is asking the tenant to be vacated when the tenant has been proved COVID positive. That should not be the thing.
Okay. And in case of Pawan, the RWA were asking for a COVID-19 negative certificate. Is that really required?
Sir, we have a latest guidelines SOP of RWA that was on 12/6/20. That I will post it to you. It is also in the web. You can just see this. RWA. Everyone see that?
Some of it, sir. If you can just tell us in a line or two what it actually means, it would be better.
Yeah, it is an advisory for the Resident Welfare Association, which is around about a 5-page this thing. In a 5-page thing. But you have to follow the strict adherence what the government, that is the Commissioner BBMP has given. You have to follow those advices. That is the instruction to RWA is no mass gatherings is permitted to be held first. Then all common area of floor, railing, surfaces likely to be touched by the residents to be cleaned by sodium hypochlorite solution regularly, or bleaching powder or effective disinfectant, and maintaining the highest level of sanitation and hygiene. That is the second. Then the care and attention to be given for the housekeeping staff. Ensure to provide them necessary soap, sanitizer, liquid dispensers for periodic hand washing. That should be the thing. Then common areas like walkways, parks, walking or jogging can be used subject to strict maintenance of social distancing of 1 meter. These places should not be covered into socializing or meeting points, defeating the purpose of preventive measures that is to be put in place. Residents should be screened before entering the campus using thermal scanner by the designated person by holding the thermal scanner at least 3 to 15 centimeters away from the forehead. If the temperature is more than 37.5 degree or 99.5 degree Fahrenheit, or with flu-like symptoms like cold, cough, sore throat, headaches, such as residents shall be isolated and referred to the nearest fever clinic or hospital for a medical checkup. Or call Apta Mitra, that is 14410. All outsiders like visitors, drivers, helpers should be screened on the entry, and hand wash or sanitizers to be provided at entry and exit points. The housing society should follow the segregated waste disposal with one fixed place identified and used for dumping of the waste, with separate bins by the residents. Then gyms, sports facilities, swimming pool, recreation clubs, and all other facilities to be closed. No summer camp activity or outdoor activity are allowed within the premises. Lift or closed spaces and potential source of infections to other so that the Resident Welfare Association should ensure the following. 1. Sanitization of the lift periodically. Sanitization lift operating buttons regularly. Then people using the lift to wash their hands using soap or hand sanitizing every usage. Not to touch eyes, nose or face and these surfaces without washing hands. In case of positive cases detected in the locality, a contaminant plan will be put for the Resident Welfare Association Corporation, would be inquired by the health authority. The informative education communication approved by the government shall be made available in soft copies which can be printed and displayed in the premises to create, but do not put flex. Associations or societies should not yield to any rumors creating panic and problems in the community. Instead, to inform the health authorities for any kind of necessary action required. It shall be the duty of Resident Welfare Association or the society to ensure that all those people who have been advised home quarantine stay indoors in their homes and do not move in the society or the community spaces or in the city casually. Health officials will stick the home quarantine posters for those who are recommended to do. Any breach in quarantine of the suspect can cause uncontrolled spread of infection in the entire community. The Resident Welfare Association should ensure the suspected COVID cases is reported by the resident to the health or municipal authorities and cooperate with them to take the required action for transferring the resident to the hospital and ensuring home quarantine. The Resident Welfare Association should see no COVID positive resident is stigmatized by others in the society and there is no abuse or harassment of the affected resident. Neighbors keep in touch with the affected family through mediums like phone, WhatsApp, video call, etc. These are the conditions. Then we have other instructions, taking care of children, all those things.
Suresh sir, we will have so we have a lot of questions coming in also.
Yeah, please.
And we will have it in the last Q&A session. And now Suchitra has a few questions.
Yeah, please.
We can't hear you, Suchitra. We can't hear you. Can't hear.
Okay. I think by the time Suchitra joins, I'll continue. In terms of
I think we can start with the questions, no, Dhanush, because we're already at 6:05. So I think a lot of the questions that have come in are also towards the panelists, and especially I think our MOH as well. So maybe we can start off on the questions. In the chat, there are a few questions.
Yeah.
Possibly we can go by that.
Okay.
So I mean, either way.
So then you can just take on the questions one by one. And there are two questions about containment zone as well that you can address. And then just take on all the questions that people have listed.
Yeah.
Ankit, your audio is low.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, anyway, we can start with the question.
Containment zone.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Dhanush?
I just wanted to understand about the containment zone.
Yeah. Mr. Dhanush, you are asking about the containment zone. What is the containment zone? Containment zone is an infected zone. It is an infected zone. It should be managed with the commodities, which is for the international trade or for the epidemiological link like outbreaks. This is a pandemic where the COVID-19 is that pandemic outbreak to establish and minimize the impact on the rest of the society or community in large. That is known as the containment zone.
Okay. Question that I can see here is, what is the screening that is done for incoming interstate passengers who are traveling by road, bus, airways already, Pawan has already mentioned. So by the other modes of transport, it could be road, bus and train. Is there any screening done?
It is a thermal screening only. Thermal screening is done. Only thermal screening is done. And if they have comorbid condition, they do check for the blood pressure as well as the blood sugar levels.
Okay. Okay. There's another question. Like if there are any healthcare workers who are traveling to Karnataka from other states, is there another like specific guidelines for them while they're traveling?
Every person is the same, whether it is a healthcare personnel or a regular normal person is the same. But only thing they have their ID. That's the only thing once they have their identity card, they immediately move in. That's the thing. Their screening will be very fast.
Okay. So we all have Arogya Setu app installed on our mobiles, most of us actually. So it sometimes shows like a presence of a COVID patient nearby. So how precise or how correct is the information on the app, and how frequently is it updated?
No, it should be updated every day. It should be updated every day. Only, you see, Arogya Setu is an app. See, all the apps do not mean to say that this was Arogya Setu app was questioned in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, when the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare in New Delhi said to the Supreme Court, it is not mandatory. Before it was mandatory, now it is not mandatory. Arogya Setu, because it should be updated every minute. It cannot be updated every minute. That is the question. So, on that basis, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare in New Delhi only has said it is not mandatory. Before, every individual should have been updated with this app and should upload the app with Arogya Setu so that he or she can know their status, what will be their thing, what will be their health status. In case they may be immediately quarantined. But the burden is increasing, and the number of users are increasing, and uploading is a bit problem. That's the thing what I'm saying. When we had the less cases, the uploading was very severe, and people have given multiple talks, because I'm also on the webinar. I'm at least got around about 20 to 30 calls now, last 1 hour. But still, I'm answering the webinar because I've already committed.
Thank you so much for that, sir. And there's one more question. The next question is, what is the maximum number of people that can come together and meet?
Maximum 5.
5. Okay.
Maximum. But in case of marriages, this thing, it is around about 15 to 25 people.
Okay. So the next question is, if a person tests positive, does he have the option to choose an hospital of his choice?
No, no. Because if it is a COVID positive, there is no this thing. Before he has been tested COVID positive, if he is a symptomatic or asymptomatic or a carrier, we do not know. If he goes and get admitted in a private hospital, then he can take the treatment there only. Then he will be tested there for COVID and he can continue the treatment. He or she can be continued with the treatment. Just like I can give you an example, which was one of the first cases of Malleshwaram rain, that is from Sadashiv Nagar. She was admitted in Vikram Hospital for chronic kidney disease and later positive. And she had a travel history, all those things. She recovered and she came out.
Okay.
Yeah, at present, there is only Victoria Hospital for all the positive cases, I feel.
Yeah.
Only for screening, you can stay in any of the private hospitals till your reports come.
Mhm. Okay. And Kumar, I have another question for you. When next question is like one more question is like when a COVID patient is in a hospital, needs like food, clothes, etc. be taken care of, or should some friends arrange for all that?
Food, everything will be given in the hospital itself. All those things will be taken care of.
Okay, so like, should the patient carry anything with them when they're like taken like?
Clothes they can carry, but even that can be provided. If not, clothes can be carried by the patient himself. But the food part, it will be taken care in the hospital, and the basic necessities, whatever is there day to day for next 14 days, still is there in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be provided in the hospital itself.
Okay, okay. And one of our participants wants to know what is the exact course of treatment that happens in COVID. Is it possible for you to give us a small brief on it?
Yeah, actually, Dr. Kumar has given this. He said it is in three this thing categories: A, mild, moderate, and severe categories. That is what Dr.
Most of
Kumar
if
has.
the patient is belonging to group A, that is those people with mild symptoms, probably just fever, and there are few people who are asymptomatic also. So those people won't be put on any medication apart from the normal. If at all he develops fever, he'll be put on paracetamol, the regular symptomatic treatment. Otherwise, the people who are having mild symptoms will be treated with whatever medications have been approved as of now, according to ICMR. We are using currently in Victoria, we are using HCQs and azithromycin, and that will be continued for 5 days. And if the patient belongs to group C, that is if he is presenting with severe infection, he might need oxygen support, and based on his response, if at all is worsening, he might need to be put on non-invasive ventilation, wherein without intubating the patient, you will be providing the required oxygen. So that can be done. So he'll be managed in ICU basically, the severely ill patients.
Okay, okay.
I have a question regarding what is the role of the ward committee in taking care of this, and of the community also, because there's a lot of fear in the community, and there's a lot of unsureness about what the ward as such can do.
Hello.
Yeah, this is for Dr. Rudrappa. Please, can you answer?
Yeah. See, one primary thing in any ward committee or any area is that it should always have maintained due to this COVID is a pandemic, this thing, and severity is very mild. That is right now. It may expand into a severe condition any day, explode. Before that, we have to have a social distancing. That is wearing of social distancing is the main thing. Then mask, always use the mask. Then sanitizing your hand, and avoid overcrowding. Avoid unnecessarily going out, and avoid unnecessarily moving in the crowding. These are the things which all ward committees should take care. And and as a matter of fact, in all the wards, spraying of sodium hypochlorite solution is regularly being done right from April 1st till date. And there is also creating awareness of this IEC activity which is going on with the auto mobilization in every ward. That is there. And ward committee, the area corporator also calls for the ward committee meetings, and he is also regularly monitoring it. So I don't think so there is a necessity to panic. And I appeal for the people and the citizen in the large as a community not to go for overcrowding, not unnecessarily go out. And as Dr. Kumar said, do not eat outside, eat at home. Eat plenty of vegetables, fruits, regular hand washing, sanitization, all these things, personal hygiene. These are the things which any individual should do, and in the ward committee also should promote this.
Right. So I think the main issue which would be I think we're all worried about is what if it happens to us? What if it happens to people close to us? There's a lot of ignorance still about that, and there's a lot of stigma around that. So that is one big problem that we.
Nothing to worry, madam. See, there should not be any stigma, as Dr. Kumar and as myself and as our BBMP commissioner and as the health officials. We should never have any stigma regarding the COVID positive case. We should always feel proud that they are there. They are part of the thing, and it is just like any other disease, and this will be with us and it will go. But I feel more than 50% of our population will have herd immunity. Now it is the phase of herd immunity has started, which goes on till at least till December. That is what I feel, or may even prolong also. Once we get the herd immunity, I feel there will be nothing to worry.
Kumar, you want to add something on herd immunity part?
Yeah, exactly. That's what we have tested only the people who have come in contact of the travel history. So as we know, there are asymptomatic people, so who will be there, who are there in the community. So for herd immunity to develop, what we think is more than 60% of the people to be infected in any population. So that's when you develop the herd immunity. So we are in the process of developing the herd immunity. So we have to minimize this thing till we develop that herd immunity. It's just like any other viral infection. You don't have to categorize as to something else. So it is just like any other viral infection. It will be there. So you have to just take necessary precautions and make sure you stay healthy till we reach that stage wherein we develop the herd immunity.
Thank you. So
I think we have one last question from one of the participants saying that if we are all going to be eating at home, but the restaurants are opening, so how does that work? Because restaurants also have to come.
Yeah, I just saw that question.
See, restaurant opening is for the people and they are doing their business. It is for their business class. And the people who taste their savvy to have their mouth odors to be, or the odor in their tongue to be tasted for them. It is for them. And I never say that you should go out and eat, you should plan, you should get a Swiggy at home, all those things. But as a matter of fact, what simple thing is cook vegetables, raw vegetables, boil it, clean it, then eat it. That is one thing. Dal, all regular items are there. Rice is there. Then you have this, what do you say, rotis. Those things are always there. If you want to have a non-veg also, you can do it at home. But only if you are not cooking at home, only if you are staying as a PTA or something like that, then you need. I don't think so, because there are people, plenty of people are going out of Karnataka, and especially from Bangalore. Even today, I have around about 2,500 of people living Bangalore in trains. So I feel it is comfortable to eat your own cook. That is, you please go and have a good food at a good joint. I'll never say you should go here, go there. That is, choice is up to the public.
Right. Dhanush, would you like to ask the next question? And then I think we'll wrap up after.
Are we doing any serosurrogate to gauge community infection rate? I
think that's not clear. We'll ask Krishna.
I think is after recovery or before.
I was
asking if you are doing any community survey to gauge the infection rate in the community. I had heard that
health survey is going on.
Yeah, do we
health
have
survey
results?
Health survey has been done, sir.
Do we have results from that? Do we know how many?
No, not yet. We have not yet got the final outcome. We will be getting it shortly. Health survey has been done in most of the BBMP area.
But it's a continuous thing, right? You have to keep doing it to see the.
Yes, sir. It is continuous thing, and it is being done. And in some areas, it was not done. It is being done also regularly, and it is a routine process. That will be there. And regular health survey is routinely, and we have this COVID health survey. It is in the containment zone. That also has been done routinely. In containment zone, it will be done for 28 days.
Okay.
Kumar, I think it's a repeating question, but if you can just give a short answer. Is home quarantine okay for COVID-19 positive patient before recovery? I'm not sure if he's even allowed.
As of now, no. So there are many countries who are following home quarantine even for those patients who have tested positive and are asymptomatic.
Okay.
But as of now, we advise institutional quarantine for them, receive treatment so that they won't transmit. There won't be any further spread of the disease to other people who are living in the community. So better will be institutional quarantine. Maybe if the caseload goes up, if at all we enter that stage wherein the healthcare system has to handle a lot of cases, then we might have to see asymptomatic people going in for home quarantine. But as of now, it is institutional quarantine and receive treatment even if you are asymptomatic and tested positive.
I think there is a question, there is a concern here that home quarantine people, the protocols are not being observed, and and even though it is known, there is almost no way of actually for the other residents who are still aware of making the people who are undergoing home quarantine or supposed to undergo home quarantine any way to make them observe it. So this is a concern of many residents.
Home quarantine, especially for travelers, that is travelers from Karnataka, inside Karnataka, and other parts of Karnataka, other parts of India, except for international travelers and travelers from Maharashtra. They are not allowed for home quarantine now. They will be first institutional quarantine. After institutional quarantine, then they will be, if they are proved negative, they will be home quarantine for another 14 days. Just like, for example, Vishwanath Anand, he came from Germany and he was quarantined in Hotel Taj Vivanta for 7 days and later due to his place Chennai. And now he is again home quarantine at his residence in Chennai for 14 days.
I think the question is why people are not following and other residents, their neighbors are aware, but there's no way to sort of enforce it.
There is a law, there is an act, there is a law. They can be punished, they can be imprisoned. You can just book a case against them and they will be penalized for at least minimum 6 months inside the bar, inside the jail, and then penalized of 1 to 2 lakhs.
I think the question was that nobody came to follow up that she was doing home quarantine. Yeah, that was the question, that no one came to check that to ensure that she was following home quarantine.
See, the home quarantine, every resident, as a matter of fact, is individual should have that minimum IQ or whatever you say. Say, once you are made home quarantine, you are supposed to be home quarantine and you are being stamped home quarantine and you assure that you are not going to. In case the neighbor says, and if a complaint has been lodged, immediately the police will come over there, and the police, what he will also warn, he or she, who the police will come and warn, and then still they do not, then they are again in suit. That is the thing. Only thing after a complaint, that it should be the attitude of the person, individual. That is what I feel. Hello,
Shall
madam.
we wrap up the session, or will we have any more questions?
Yeah, I think.
Are we ready to wrap?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'd like to thank each one of our panelists who have spent their really valuable time, especially Dr. Rudrappa, who told me that he's not taken leave from March onwards, and I know he's working on Saturdays and Sundays also. So profound thanks to you and Dr. Kumar from Victoria Hospital. I'm sure you're in the thick of it, and a lot of gratitude to you people who are handling a very critical situation in a really very positive way. So thank you very much for coming on board. And Dia, Pawan, for sharing your experiences, because as a community group, and we are definitely very concerned about how the health of the community should be maintained. But at the same time, we would like to ensure that people are treated with empathy and not stigmatized at all, because really, you know, any one of us could be next. And we wouldn't like to have this treatment meted out to us. I mean, that's on a very basic level. We should observe the sort of empathy for anybody who has been infected. So thank you very much. We'd like to wrap up the session now, but before going, we'd like to tell you that we continue this webinar series on COVID. This is just the first one. The second of the series will be on next Saturday. The details will be posted on our website, and whoever has registered for this, we would also be reaching out to you personally. And the second series of the series would be on public spaces, using public spaces, walking, cycling, markets. These are very big concerns for us now, as the lockdown has been lifted, and we need to sort of understand how we should use these public spaces. So we hope to see all of you and many others back here next week. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful rest of the evening.
Thank you, madam. Thank
So
you.
I would like to wrap up with any last concluding comments.
Anything, Pawan and Dia, you guys want to add something?
Well, no, I think you guys covered everything. So just that I hope there'll be more awareness going ahead, and not misinformation, so that there is less panic amongst the community and people. That's about it. So that's happening, and I'm sure that will happen. And also, one thing I think that we should give credit to the Karnataka government is, compared to other states in India, I think our government has done a brilliant job in containing the spread and also keeping the count to a low number despite having a very dense population and in a city like Bangalore. So when I actually entered Bangalore airport, I was really happy to see the way it was streamlined, and also the process was so smooth, and people ensuring social distancing in the queues and everywhere. Wherever wherever it's possible, they've done a great job. And again, this is an unprecedented situation for all of us. So I think we could be there for all of us to help and support each other.
Yeah, thanks. And I just want to say that some of the resources that we would be requiring, whether it's list of hospitals or primary health centers, the SOPs for various the RWAs, etc. All of this information would be posted on our website, and we'll be sending you the links. Am I right, Ankit, on that?
Yeah, yeah. So by Monday, Tuesday, we would like to also refer to you, Mr. Jyotipa, and also Mr. Kumar, Dr. Kumar, and just accumulate all the resources in one place and put it up on the website.
Right. Thank you so much.
And we will also be sharing the recording of this video soon.
Okay.
Thank you all for joining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody for joining. There will be a recording also posted if you would like to refer to it at any point of time later.
Okay. I think it's good.
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jyotipa.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, doctor. Thank you for your insights, and we'll continue to if we have some questions, we'll continue to be in touch with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Bye.